What's going on, y'all? So today I want to share with you guys one of the most viral psych stories, if not the most viral psych stories that I have ever told, ever. And actually, I preserved retelling this story specifically for this podcast because I ended up getting so many questions that I couldn't answer on social media for community guidelines reasons and just a bunch of things that I ended up researching and informing myself upon after so many knowledgeable people on the topics of psych and some of the historical directions they pointed me in that gave me a way different perspective on what I'm about to tell you. So while I was working in the psych ward, there was a woman who claimed that she was being followed by the FBI or CIA, one of those higher up government entities and agencies, right? And this is not an uncommon thing for people with paranoid delusions, right? They believe that somebody is after them, that there are cameras everywhere. These are things that I have seen common amongst patients hundreds of times throughout my 7+ year career as a mental health technician working in multiple psych wards. So let's just say that this wasn't going to be a patient that we didn't know how to deal with. But her situation was quite specific because she believed that her neighbors were spies, which led her to take her shotgun and shoot it into their front door from across the street or in the driveway, somewhere to where she could shoot into the front door. Thankfully, nobody was home, but this is what preceded her coming into our hospital unit and what ended up happening while she was there. Let's just say her delusions turned out to be true. Welcome back to Jay's Psych Ward Stories.
We are living in a psych ward. I'm quite sure this is psych ward. I'm quite sure.
Yo, welcome to Jay's Psych Ward Stories, man. I am so happy to be back here on the pod with you all. Like, we did our first launch, and so many of you are here that have come through, and we hope to just continue to grow this podcast. So with that being said, if you have not received your perk yet, I'm still figuring things out on Patreon. I will give you your perk for those of you that are in that mid-tier. I'm going to make sure that you get your perk, which is that you get a certain percentage off of merch for life, as well as a monthly Q&A, as well as a chance to pick what video we release next. I'll give you a couple of options because I do have some things that I want to talk about. Like the next video that I want to, one of these next videos I want to address is Canada's aggressive approach to mental health and being able to commit people from traffic stops by an order of a doctor. Whew, we're going to get into that one. For those of y'all that are here, y'all know me, man. Y'all have been around listening to my content, watching my content. Some of you are in the school community, which I appreciate. And I just really look forward to continuing to build this community and doing some really cool things and introducing conversation and information to the field of mental health because it is stigmatized. It is one note sometimes, but I find internationally, because I've spoken with people that have been patients in the Netherlands, in France, in Norway, in New Zealand, in South Africa, all over the United States and Canada. And there is a similar tune to a lot of these systems. And I'm starting to put the pattern together, but I want to be able to share that knowledge for us all to be able to understand and have a hive mindset of like what all is at our disposal. How has the psych industry been informed and what can we do to position ourselves so that we can work through our mental health with confidence, clarity, and control. Point blank, period. So if you're here for all that, you're already in the right spot. Thank y'all for being here, and let's get back into this story. So yes, like I said, this elderly woman, she was being checked into our unit. Now, when she came up from the emergency room. They kept her overnight, and we got the report about what she had did to her neighbor's door, shooting her shotgun into their front door. And she claimed that they were spies, government spies sent to watch her specifically. She said there were certain cameras she found in her house, whether it's in her bedroom, in her shower. She had all of the specifics. Now, I'm not a stranger to patients being able to articulate themselves within their delusion well, right? Now, here's the thing about the brain. When you're able to understand something has happened to you, right? You have to understand what reality really is. The reason why we all are able to not go quote unquote insane right now is because we all agree on what this shared experience is. And that doesn't take much to do. All you need is for people to believe the same thing in order for that shared reality to project itself into the real world and for nobody to see anything that's not supposed to be there in a sense, right? Like if I tell you that that color is green, whatever you associate to be the color green in your mind or your perception, which I cannot see, which I cannot look through, you're going to be in agreement with me because whatever that color is to your eyes is what we have agreed upon as green. But I can't say that the green that I see is the green that you see. But we can all call it the same thing, which is what allows us to share this same fabric of understanding and unity of consciousness to a degree, which is why when you go with TV or television programs, it is projecting a narrative, it is projecting a theme, it is projecting an idea. And our brains are being informed by what is being projected. Now, if we go to an actual television set and see it for what it really is, then we would see a lot of these sitcoms that we might have grown up on were sets that were boxed in. It's kind of like if I take this camera and take you out of this area that is my podcast space, you would see where it is housed in. You would see the context of what it all really is, which is why some people that watch TV shows that they played in or played a part in, they view it completely differently, obviously, right, from the world, because they don't see the finished product that we are informed upon. They remember the lines, the cuts, the breaks, the sets, all of those things, which gives them a larger vantage point. Now, they're able to contextualize the difference that they experienced because they were actors. But imagine as a viewer if you saw from the actor's perspective when you watched the show, while everybody else saw the regular TV perspective of what they wanted you to see. But then you started pointing out things that are really going on behind the scenes that other people can't see. Does that make you crazy? Or do you have access to another realm or side of information that other people aren't privy to? Very much so food for thought for this episode. So as this woman comes onto our unit, she is tired because they bring her up in the middle of the night. We're really almost going towards night shift. I was working afternoons that day. So I come to get her checked in. So as a technician, when a patient comes onto the unit and they're brought up in a gurney, whether it's from the EMT or whether it's from the downstairs medical staff and the technicians down there, the patient care techs and maybe a charge nurse, they hand us off their paperwork, their belongings, and then we take them into the intake office where we begin to check them in and get some vital information from them. We check their blood pressure. That's where we do the skin check. That's when we ask them about how they got here and do a slight interview of sorts. And so she's very tired and lethargic, but she's still able to articulate herself about why she's here. And she's like, "You're not going to believe me, but the government is after me. They've put cameras in my house. They put cameras in." And let me just give you an idea of my disposition towards patients that share these types of things. There are some technicians and staff that will turn their nose up on that or already decide in their head like, another delusion. And sometimes they'll think they're saving the patient from falling deeper into it by stopping them and telling them that's not reality. But if their brain is already giving them that type of information and context for the way they see the world, you disrupting them from expressing it is not going to heal or stop anything in which they're being informed upon. You know what I mean? So I let patients cook. Actually, it lets me learn them a little bit more. It helps me to understand okay, it's one thing to have this delusion, quote unquote. It's another thing to see how that informs your life. Does that make you into an erratic person that can't feed themselves, that can't step out of the house, that wants to hurt people, that wants to harm themselves? Does it create a level of understanding or peace or harmony in your life to where it's not disrupting your social or vocational interactions in the world? There was one girl I remember, because America has some of the most aggressive mental health disorders that disrupt the psyche in huge ways. In history and in other contexts of the world that aren't informed by Western culture, what we call mental health disorders, they're categorized differently elsewhere. I remember there was a girl who had visual and audio hallucinations, and she came to our ward because she's in America, but she was from somewhere in India, and all she saw was cows. And her people call her blessed because in her faith and religion, cows were seen as holy. And it didn't disrupt her at all. It didn't disrupt anything about her existence until she came to America and she started talking about that at her job. And then they said, yeah, we might need to send you in before you can come and clock in again. Food for thought. So as she's sharing about the CIA and being after her, I'm not giving her any weird looks. I'm not shutting her down. I'm not trying to steer the conversation. I'm just listening. I'm saying, she tells me about the neighbors. And there's certain points where she kind of paused, and you could tell socially she was kind of reading me, not to see whether I believed her or not, but kind of in shock, like, you haven't dismissed me, you haven't, like, shut me down or curtailed the conversation, because I'm sure she's used to that, especially at her old age. But she said this has been happening for quite some time. I don't remember the exact amount of time that she said, whether it was years or months or whatever the case may be, but she said it was the last straw when she kept seeing the neighbors, new cameras in her house and new things that she would discover. And then when she would want to confront them, they would act like they don't know what they're talking about, what she's talking about. So it's a very extreme to take the shotgun and shoot down their door. You better be pretty sure. And man, it was interesting, very interesting, the fact that she didn't get arrested and taken in. I'm not saying she should have, based on her circumstance, because what I'm about to tell you is kind of like, oh, wow, interesting. But she didn't get taken to jail or anything like that, even though the police knew that she owned a gun and that she shot it into her neighbor's front door. No, they decided to take her, because nobody was home and nobody got hurt, to the psych ward to be committed. I thought that was very interesting, because interestingly enough for me, I'm like, bro, if that was me, they would have put me under the jail. Okay, you got to understand the historical context and things like that in which you live in this country. And that's a lot of the reasons why I was able to even level with and understand some of these patients, because I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be assumed to be a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had some pleasant and unpleasant interactions with law enforcement. I've never broken the law. I don't have no record or nothing. But, as young as a teenager at a fair that I was at, because I had on a shirt that a gang had on, a red shirt, and it was like a Hollister polo, when action had broke off in the middle of the fair with a fight and the two sides fighting, the police threw me to the ground. I was like 13, 14 years old, and they was assuming that I was a part of it. And one of my friends had to let him know, like, yo, he had nothing to do with this. I was frozen in fear. I didn't know what to do. I never had no interaction like that with the police, So, like, being misunderstood and labeled before you're having a chance to really advocate for yourself and share about who you really are, or for it to be assumed that you're a decent person. Like, in many, many circumstances in my life, I've had that happen to me, whether it's race related, whether it's because I'm a, male, I don't know, whatever. In no way do I see myself as a victim, neither. That's just me acknowledging the external experiences that I had and internalizing that in a way that allowed me to be present with patients that go through the same things in ways that do victimize them, that do create circumstances where they aren't able to, be themselves how they should be. And if you're in a psych ward where you're supposed to be there around people that help you, why shouldn't you feel safe to do just that? I don't know. I'm just saying. But she said she was relieved to be here, because she said at least they'll be able to leave me alone, right? At least they won't be after me here. I'm thinking, okay, well, cool. Hopefully we can get her whatever she needs. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, she's still able to sign her name in on the papers. She's a little lethargic and things like that, but it's nighttime. So I tell her I'll show her around the unit in the morning, because I happen to be coming back for the day shift the next day. And, but I also just showed her around very quickly, but it was dark. The unit was shut down for the day. So it was only so much that I could show her about, like, hey, here's the group room where you have community meeting. Here's where we eat. Here's your room right here. And she happened to not have a roommate. The unit was actually fairly light around that time, so she was just like happy to be away. And I just got her some water, got her some extra blankets, and told her and gave her her toiletries, took her to her room, and let her know what time the first group was, And I figured she'd sleep through the night anyways and sleep through the first group. She just seemed like she really needed to catch up on some sleep, which is a lot of people when they come to the psych ward. I worked 7+ years in psych, helping patients navigate psych wards, showing them their rights, expressing true advocacy, making a difference. It earned me the nickname the Patient Whisperer, and I'm going to help you guys navigate as well. So whether you've been to the psych ward before, whether you're thinking about going, you want to avoid going, or you just want to learn more about how the system works so that you can be an advocate and think from a patient's perspective, this community is for you. People from different levels in their mental struggles, whether they are wondering if they've been misdiagnosed, struggling with the mental health disorder, this community will put you together with like-minded people who get it. Mental health is often stigmatized, as we know, and I've gotten thousands of messages from people that have interacted with me on social media saying that they've never ever experienced a page or a platform that is dedicated to discussing topics on mental health, destigmatizing certain experiences like going to the psych ward, and it made so many people feel seen. Well, I'm gonna take that a step further and allow us to all see one another in a closed group only for the people that are serious about their growth and about their mental health journey. You could truly be equipped with the tools and resources from my 7+ years of experience working inside of various psych wards. I can give you exclusive intel and insights that I can't share on social media about how the psych system works and how you can work it in your favor when you're dealing with a mental health crisis. As a community, we'll have discussions, weekly video calls, and hangouts where we're able to hear from one another, hear each other's goals and struggles, celebrate one another. I am so excited about this space because I know how much growth and learning and connection can happen. Community is so important to not only get the help that you should be getting in psych wards through this group, but also be prepared for the psych wards should you ever need to go to one. I've searched. I'm not sure if a community such as this exists, so I'm excited to build onto this new idea with you all and for it to blossom. And as you guys make your imprint on it, we can grow and turn it into a space that fits the needs of the community. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side. So the next day, she lays low, stays low. She doesn't really pop out for groups. She comes out to take her medication that she's prescribed. She comes out for maybe the second meal of the day. She might miss dinner and then grab some snacks. She didn't really have much of an appetite. So she was really like not seen, not heard like that. And whenever she had interaction, she would see staff. She would smile, like a tired smile, and then kind of retreat back. Maybe she'll take a couple laps in the grippy socks and the gowns, just taking a couple laps around the unit, but definitely staying away from people, not trying to be seen, very much so to herself. And I can't exactly remember how many days she spent in there before this event happened. Maybe it was about day 3, maybe day 4, but I was working the day shift and it was not a visiting day. And we had a ring at the doorbell. And so our unit is doubly locked. You have to get through one big magnetized door that you have swipe access to get through, and then there's a holding area, and then you have to wait till that door closes for the other magnet door to be able to be released through you swiping again. So if a patient was even strong enough to get through that industrialized door, they would have to give their all once and then give their all again. Not likely, and it's probably not going to happen. Those doors are thick as heck. The strong bond between that magnetic hold, it ain't going nowhere. So, it's a very light unit, and so we didn't get, so we got to ring at the doorbell, and there was no visiting going on that day, so I'm like, who could that be? There are 2 men in suits, and so it's, immediately I'm like, this must be clergy services, religious services, but we didn't have anybody scheduled to come. So maybe they're on the wrong floor. In my mind, it went by that maybe these are the higher ups of the hospital, but there's no way to really tell because the higher ups usually have swipe access. They come through. They might be showing people around the hospital, whether they're about to do construction repairs or remodeling or come and talk to the charge nurse or whatever. They got free reign to come and walk and do as they will. But these people stopped at the door. They rang the door. I'm like, it didn't look exactly like clergy. There were men in black suits and they had on shades. And that was all I could really see for the most part. And they were standing together. It was 2 of them. And so the charge nurse, she goes out to go greet these individuals to kind of see what they're about and instruct them that visiting is not today. But I noticed that she went out there and she was talking to them. I went to go do a round and my other duties, check where patients are at and things like that. And as I made my round, after about 10 minutes, I noticed that the charge nurse is still out there speaking with those men. And I'm like, interesting. My brain kind of flagged that as abnormal. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is quite interesting. So maybe after another 5 minutes or so, she comes back onto the unit and she kind of has like a one-track mind and she looks flustered. And I'm thinking like, yo, you going to tell us what's going on? I see the men are still standing at the door and you're coming over here. Is somebody leave? Like, I have no idea what's going on. So she tells all the staff, she brings people into the room. She closes the door. She says, hey, look, these men are authorized to take that patient that I was just telling you about, take such and such off the unit. And we have to wipe her chart from the system and we have to discharge her immediately. I was trying to get clarity on who they were, but apparently that's classified, but they have all of the proper documentation. I spoke to the hospital supervisor as well as whoever all the higher up people are that you need to speak to in order for something like this to take place. I don't know, right? But she looked spooked, like she didn't want to touch the situation with a 39.5 foot pole, but was just following orders. And the chain of command was curious, but deciding based on whatever conversation she had with these men that, you know what, I better follow what I'm being told. Now, this is the thing. When I shared that part on just telling the story on TikTok, a lot of people were like, why would y'all let anybody just come up in here and do this? Listen, I don't have no context for understanding how this was allowed to happen, but you know that there are certain things that can happen and that are allowed to happen if they can happen, you know, from who they need to talk to and all that stuff. I was a technician, you know, so the very next thing that we did, I had to go gather her stuff and I had to go get her out of her room. And I said, hey, you're being discharged. And she's like, what? I ain't even, she's like still kind of lethargic. She's like, I don't even have anywhere to go after this. I'm not allowed to go back home. Where am I going to be going? And so I said, the nurse is going to explain that to you, but there's some people here to get you. And she kind of looks at me like this look of like, I don't know what you talking about, but I hope it ain't nothing that I am going to regret to hear, you know, type vibes, right? So the men are invited onto the unit to which they are walking up to collect the woman's things. The nurse hands them the proper paperwork where they sign. They give her over her belongings and and then they hand some of them to her. And then they tell her, all right, you got to come with us. And she looks devastated. This look of devastation that, oh my goodness, these people were even able to find me here. Now that's kind of obvious, right? Because if you got a whole police report and if you are in fact being watched, and we're going to get to that in a second, you know, it's not very hard to find out your whereabouts and where you ended up. So she looks over at the staff and she said, I told you they were after me. And that sent chills down my spine. At that moment, I knew that there was so much more regarding this whole psych world that I did not understand. Why would people be after this old lady? What keys does she hold or have or anything? What crimes did she commit to where she would have this level of intrusion in this fashion? Like if somebody committed a crime, like I wouldn't be surprised if the police came like, hey, you know, I know she's here at the moment, but that was just our holding place. And now we need to take this lady into custody and process her and all that stuff for shooting that shotgun into the neighbors across the street. But nah, none of that was addressed. None of that was done. But they took her off the unit and she walked with them. And that was that. Her chart was pulled. We were all kind of spooked about it. But the nurse let us know, like, listen, I am not allowed to talk about this. We are not allowed to talk about this. She has been pulled and we won't be able to find it, but don't be going to try to find what's all in her chart and things like that, or you will get in trouble. So I'm like, I'm just going to stay away from that. At the end of the day, I'm here for a job. I need to be able to provide for my family. See how my brain kind of just goes directly towards like selfishness. And I don't say that in a way to judge myself. I say that in a way to where this system kind of like has us in this survival mode where certain situations where if you were to look into things deeper, where you could or would, there's like this social, workplace like blockages that have you turn a certain part of your brain off. But when I thought about it too, because some people were very upset at me in the comment section, they were like, you should have done something. You should have did this. And I didn't let any of that stick to me. I'm gonna just keep it real with y'all. I didn't let none of that stick because these people, you know, when you're telling a story, it's easy for people to say what they would have done or could have done or should have done. But people's situational awareness, no, it's not even that strong. And I knew enough then to know, like, you're saying that based on how you insert yourself into the narrative and not how it actually happened to me. I'm retelling you based on my understanding, but that doesn't even reflect the same level of understanding that I had in that moment. I had to brush that off. And looking back, it's like, let's say I would have been like, no, you guys can't take her. They talk to the higher ups of the hospital. What am I going to do? You know what I mean? What am I going to be able to do to stop that situation? How am I going to protect that lady? I'm protecting her within a fabric of a institution that I can't even run or control. So people just got to think, you know what I'm saying? Think not just with their emotions, but with their actual brains. Believe it or not, none of my coworkers were really that interested in talking about it any further. You know, in the psych ward, there's a lot of interesting things that happen. You know, there's violence, there is trauma, there is drama, there's all types of things that could pull your attention away. And believe it or not, that wasn't all that interesting enough to all of the staff to get their attention, especially when you got patients that are potentially violent, especially when you got demands to get your work done in certain ways, and it just puts you right back in that mode of being a worker, right? And so the aftermath of me releasing that story, people really started to pour in about like the different things that are experienced, like gang stalking. I'm like, gang stalking? What's gang stalking? So I looked that up. I looked up gang stalking, but matter of fact, I'm gonna actually just like pull up the actual like definition from Google. Yo, doc, I need off these meds. I'm gaining weight. I'm sleeping way too long. I'm always tired when I'm up. How is this helping my depression? I'm worse off than when I first came to see you.
Yes, it appears you may have a mood disorder as well. And the way you're hyperfixating on your symptoms, perhaps I should give you anxiety meds. Yeah, let's try some anxiety medication.
I'm done experimenting, doc. Discharge me from this hospital so I can go home, please.
I'm afraid it's not that simple.
What do you mean? I came here under my own power and I'm requesting to leave. It is that simple.
Tell me, Charles, have you read Jay's Psych Ward Survival Guide?
What the hell even is that?
If you would have read it, you'd know that you can't just leave. And you'd also know that I could send your case to a judge to have them determine whether you should be here or not, based on the symptoms that you've exhibited and the statements that I've recorded that you've said.
This is ridiculous. This can't be legal. I have rights.
Rights? What are they?
Get the survival guide. Jay Psych survival guide.
I have this.
Where did you get that?
I got it from Jay Pitts, and now I'm about to find out exactly how to survive this psych ward.
Good luck, and I'll see you in court.
So gang stalking is a term used to describe a persecutory belief system in which individuals who self-identify as targeted individuals believe they are being systematically monitored, stalked, and harassed by a vast coordinated network of people in their community. Honestly speaking, I don't like the way they frame that because it automatically puts it separate from reality when this is a real thing that goes on. Let's go through a little bit of a history lesson because a lot of people don't know that the mental health disorders that are in the DSM-5, that have been in the DSM, that is informed by CIA experimentation on individuals. Do I sound crazy? Maybe, but it's there. It's declassified. You can go look up MK Ultra experiments where the goal of the CIA was to see if they can make the human brain a clean slate to be programmed by the means of psychedelics and other psychological tactics where they broke down the human's brain, psyche, etc. There is some very interesting footage of patients being under these types of psychedelics and schizophrenia being pulled as a result of that. Like, there were a lot of reasons why the government wanted to do that, and they share it in one entity, in one way and reason, as if it's like, yeah, but we don't do that anymore. Now we have informed consent laws, and we were wilding back then, but now we know. It's like, no, let's stop, because y'all were doing these for calculated reasons, and when you see what it's unfolded into, reality is a lot stranger than fiction, okay? So some people are gang stalked, and like, I can't really tell you what the reason why she might have been gang stalked was, like, it's an old feeble lady. When I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what threat does she pose, I have no idea how to contextualize that within her experience, but I can tell you that, yes, this is a real thing that goes on. Yes, this is a real type of interaction that these entities have had with the individuals in our society. Yes, absolutely. There are private psychiatric institutions where these experimentations still do go on, and if you don't believe that, that's okay, but you got to understand, like, we're only living in the world that we're allowed to see, and that we're aware of seeing. Working in the psych ward for me showed me way more about the systematic underwiring that's happening in our world, like imagine, if we look at the internet cables and the things that run under our streets, right, run under the ocean floor for world connectivity and different information to be processed and whatnot. Like, these are structures that exist. We are not aware of them. And it's kind of built to be that way, not in order to hide things from us, but because if you were to make all these cables and cords actually come out and be within the fabric of our society, it would be very messy. We wouldn't be able to get around. So they had to conveniently put it in places, and all of the power and the things that are able to happen on top of that grid is beyond our comprehension. We just live and we just pick up the phone and see that we have a signal. We just, don't really think about how Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and these things essentially work, but just that they do, and we don't question it. The same thing about going to the grocery store. Apples exist because grocery stores exist, but a lot of people don't have a relationship with what it takes in order for it to be a good apple and to recognize a good apple to be that, and not tasting like, if you've had an organic, and I don't mean organic from the grocery store, I mean grown in some good soil from a farmer's market, whether it's fruit, vegetables, or whatever, you can taste the difference between organic freshness and what the earth produces versus the pesticides and the types of waxiness that we get on our fruits and vegetables when we go to the grocery store. And if you are informed about grocery stores because that's all you've eaten, of course you won't be able to detect all of the additives and the different things that's happening underneath it all. Right. So I use that analogy for the naysayers that are like, no, this isn't happening, because if it was, I would know. It's like, oh, you think too highly of yourself. Don't do that, because that's how they was able to play my people, if you feel me. And I get that, which puts me in a perfect context to be able to be sensitive to the happenings of other individuals in psychiatric care. So again, I don't know why they would be after women such as her, but these things do happen. And it's interesting because I see the benefit of psych wards for certain individuals, because I don't think that just because these things are possible and that, the CIA's experimentation and the different things that they have done have made room for the existence of psych wards, just because that is in the soil, it doesn't mean, for some people it does, but it doesn't mean that the whole thing should be thrown out as a bad thing, and I'm gonna get controversial again, but it's kind of like Planned Parenthood, right? Like, you can go to Planned Parenthood and get an abortion, right? There's a lot of services you can get when you go to Planned Parenthood, and they can be good services, right? But the thing about that place and Margaret Sanger and what her whole idea around eugenics was, and putting these places specifically in urban / really black communities with the goal of having us eradicate ourselves rather than creating any type of process that will be coming on the offense from them. They're like, well, let's give them the tools to do it themselves. Like, we'll just put these conveniently here. And I notice I can go to the suburbs and I'm running into these types of clinics less and less and less. Soon as I cross over a certain level to the hood and to the urban areas and black areas and all that minority areas, I'm seeing these things out the wazoo. Like, they're all over the place, right? And so with that, just because something can do something good for you doesn't mean that it came from good intentions and that there are a whole host of negative contexts for their existence. But that also doesn't remove the good that can come from a place like that, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that in a way that means it should exist. I'm just saying that in a way that recognizes it as is. You feel me? Like, we can do the same thing back to the grocery analogy that I made. Like, if people from 100 years ago had a vast understanding about the amount of chemicals, pesticides, and infiltration that we would be putting on our foods, they would be looking at that like the most disgusting poison that you would never put in your body, right? And they would be like super against it because they're hypersensitive to how things should be and are at that time. But for us, we are desensitized to it. And matter of fact, there are good things that we can pull from it because of the level of understanding that we have and how that informs our current experience in the now. Does that make sense? And so it could still be a very good thing and very good things that you can grab from the grocery store. All right. So let me wrap this up because I just seen my camera's about to die. So what do we do when we know that psych wards have the potential to have these types of interactions? I haven't seen that again since that moment, but it really opened my mind up to wanting to understand the whole picture, the whole context, why this would even be allowed. And I didn't discover certain things about the psych ward until after I left, until after I was able to step away, learn, tell these stories, and interact with hundreds, thousands of people that have worked in the psych ward, been in the psych ward, or been a part of certain government entities. Where I've talked to a host of individuals that have helped me to puzzle piece the context together about how things like this can happen, why they happen, and this interesting country that we call America that does not shy away from extracting what it wants from its people and doing some heinous things that you would never know is happening under the fabric of the public that is presented. All right. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this. I don't know what happened to that lady. I don't know if she was ever able to go home. We didn't speak about her again. What would you have done in that situation? What do you know about gang stalking, the CIA, and MK Ultra? And I feel like since we're in the age of information where there are a whole bunch of things coming out, whether it's because our government is doing some heinous things and whether it's the false narratives that we're finding out about the wars and the real context for things, and it's just certain things like that. Like I'm really not into the divisiveness and trying to be politically aligned in certain ways and like that. Like if you stay in that type of fight and mindset, I feel like you're biting the bait of where they want to keep you, which is confused, divided, ignorant, angry, emotionally high strung, attached. I had to detach from all this stuff, and that really helped to liberate me and to open myself up to the possibilities of unity, and through talking to people from different backgrounds and just accepting people from where they're at and finding new solutions that don't have to come from our westernization and putting doctors as the final authority, because there's so much more that we need to be able to discover, which is why I have the resources that I do for the people to connect with me in different ways and connect with each other, because it's really not about me. I'm one person, but obviously I'm the vessel, the channel that you can hop on to be able to congregate around and have conversations that are well informed, coming from like-minded individuals. And I just believe that's a space that we need to protect, because if they put so much mess in that space, so much stress in that space, then there must be something to it. There must be power there. We got to look at the areas they tell us to look away from. We got to go to the areas that they tell us there's nothing to see. That's what we're here to do. Let me know what you think about this story. Man, I think we should be going for about 3 to 4 stories a month. I think that should be like a good goal to be able to do. So let's see if we can reach that. I'm gonna get y'all perks and everything like that. We still coming together on everything. If you want some merch, you feel me? You can go head on to jpitchmusic.com and click the merch tab, and you'll be able to catch the merch in there while it lasts, because I will be switching that out soon. So I appreciate y'all as always, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Thank y'all for watching Jay Psych Word Stories, and we out.